there. But let's do one thing. Let's talk about the capital goods space, because a lot of the projects were stuck during the second wave. Now that things have eased and COVID cases are on the downslide, is there a pickup in the private capex cycle? That's the question that we're asking. We have the management of Thermax joining us. We have Mr. Ashish Bhandari, who's the MD and CEO of the company. Mr. Bhandari, good morning and thanks for being with us on CNBC TV18. That's the first question, right? Have you seen a pickup in terms of execution of projects, and are you seeing more money coming from the private sector right now? Are there green shoots in the private sector capex cycle?
Mr. Bhandari, I think you have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on CNBC. A very simple answer to your question would be yes, on both counts here. We are seeing green shoots of recovery, and we are seeing private spending also picking up from sectors like steel, cement, a variety of other industries. Food, pharma had picked up quite early in the cycle, but now we are seeing a clear signs of broad-based recovery.
Okay, so, give us some sense and some color, Mr. Bhandari. I'm asking this. I mean, there was a capex recovery a decade ago. I mean, that was the big capex cycle, and we've been waiting to see some sign of that ever since. So this recovery that you're speaking of, is it the start of another mega cycle, or is it just recovery after a pandemic where everything was locked down? What's the shade of this recovery?
I think it's slightly better than what it was just as a pandemic recovery, because if you take a look at Thermax's numbers as well, the first wave finished somewhere at the beginning of Q2 of last year. Q2 was badly affected. Q3, we started to see numbers for Thermax are a steady base of 1,200, 1,300 crores typically. We started to show numbers of 1,500 crores approximately. And so there was a little bit of a delta out there. And this particular cycle, we are seeing that recovery improve to that 1,500 crores per quarter kind of a number, with some big projects now starting to show up. So it's too early to say if it's a boom cycle like it was in 2010, but it's certainly more than just a pandemic-based recovery, because now it's held up for nearly 3 quarters now. And the pipeline that we see continues to be robust. I would say, though, that we should not expect mega projects, at least not in the industries that we touch, of the kind we used to see 10 years ago. Because with the whole nature of energy changing, I do feel that the nature of projects will also change. So we will see a lot of smaller, more decentralized projects than just reliance on mega central projects, I would say.
Okay, that's an interesting observation, that perhaps the nature of the projects have changed. Last time when we spoke, you told us that you're seeing a pickup in the FMCG space, in the pharma space, and in the chemical sector. Can you give us some more details on where you're seeing new projects emerge from, and where does the opportunity lie over the next 12 months?
I think all 3 of these sectors will continue to hold. In fact, when we looked at the last 5 years of Thermax's data, we saw that our top 6 sectors, which are 3 of these that you mentioned, and then there would be cement, steel, refining and petrochemical, they all account for about 10 to 15% of Thermax's numbers. And what we are seeing now is exactly that. We are seeing good demand pickup across all of these 6 sectors. Last time when we had spoken, I had talked about how some of our bigger projects, which were more driven by government projects, which were stuck, not because the projects itself had been shelved or anything. It was entirely driven by people not being available to design the project, take them through the whole bidding cycle. And now we are seeing movement on that front as well, which is why you would see the one reasonable sized order, which was close to 300 crores that we reported to the street. But the year as a whole has got several such projects which are now starting to move as well. Whether we will win those or not, and competitiveness continues to be extremely high, but at least the projects are moving now.
Okay. Ashish, let me ask you this. Now, as you said, the nature of projects and orders is changing. One area where there's massive disruption underway is energy itself, right? The whole shift to clean energy, and now we're hearing more and more companies talking about green hydrogen, fuel cell technologies. Everyone's trying to figure out, storage capacity in terms of EVs as well. So, from Thermax's point of view, what sort of an opportunity does this segment and whatever capex that starts taking place in this segment, does it present for you?
To us, it presents one of the biggest opportunities out there. Yeah, so you're taking a world which had 80% fossil fuel, 20% renewables, and in terms of new capacity, in the next 10 years, we are saying it's going to flip. Yeah, 80% of it is going to be driven by renewables, resulting in green hydrogen. A whole host of new technologies will come into play. And so in that sense, it's a very exciting space for not just for Thermax, for the entire ecosystem, because there's new technologies, new customer models, new discussions to be had. And we just need to move extremely fast because the world's not going to wait for us to get a strategy together. So this whole space has got a lot of meaning for Thermax, a lot of discussions with global technology providers, our own technologies, discussions with governments to understand where India itself is going. And this is not a question of will it happen or not? It will absolutely happen. And it's not even a question of 5 years from now. I think it's the next 3 years itself.
Precisely, Ashish. So some numbers will help from the point of view of as a percentage of revenue, how much could it be? And more importantly, will you have to invest in capex? Will you have to put some money to work to be ready to partner a lot of these companies looking at the transition?
So let me talk a little bit about the past, if you take our large boilers business, just last 3 quarters, not a single order we got, except for this last one that we got in oil and gas. We were clocking more than 400 crores a quarter entirely on applications that would be considered green. Yeah, there were applications around biomass, spent wash, waste heat recovery, and going into cement industries, steel industries, variety of different applications, improving energy transition, improving energy management as part of the whole transition that we are talking about. So that's one set. We are extremely active on the biomass side. We are possibly one of India's largest biomass players, where we provide whole host of utility and energy solutions entirely driven by agro waste for a variety of different applications. And now you will see us active in bio-CNG as well. And then finally, in terms of the new technologies that you talked about, I do think Thermax will have to go through a capex investment cycle of its own as well, and potentially a significant capex deployment cycle. What that looks like, the timing, a lot of that depends on the partnerships, the specific areas that Thermax chooses to enter. But this whole space will be an active one for the next 6 to 24 months for Thermax and for many other players as well.
Well, keep your date with us. We want to hear about all of those additional new plans on these newer technologies for sure, and the capex. I won't ask you for the number today, but I'm sure we'll have more conversations around this. Thank you very much for joining in and for being with us on the show. That is Thermax, business looking up, capex looking up. And of course, there's the entire clean energy play that they are a part of. We'll take a quick break on that note. On the other side, AK Jana